Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special series of the SWW show. I'm Mike. That over there, well, we'll say sadly, but honestly, we're all really excited. That's not AJ. That over there is Dan. Dan, what are we here to talk about today?
We're here to talk about my number four favorite thing in the entire universe, which recently just jumped ranks on food. Borderlands, the entire series, as Borderlands 1 all the way to the new release of 3.
That's right, we're doing a series here of every couple weeks we're going to sit down and have a podcast talking about Borderlands. Dan and I here are major fans of the franchise, all the way going back from 1 and throughout the year. So we thought it'd be a fun idea as we lead up to the highly anticipated release of 3, going through each of the games, talk about them, kind of our stories about the games, and like where they stand as pieces of entertainment. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say just pieces of entertainment. I would say quite literally pieces of history.
pieces of you do understand these are fictional games, right?
Well, I like to think that this might be either taking place at the same time as our world today, just in a different dimension or galaxy, or just maybe it's a glimpse into the future.
A glimpse into the future. Like global warming got so bad, so we are Pandora.
Yes,
Okay.
and everybody went crazy, and instead of the world being run by big oil companies, it's run by big gun manufacturing companies.
And that's a good place to start, I think. So I'm gonna start kind of like each episode, kind of some general facts about the game. So, Borderlands 1 came out in 2009. As most of the games by the series, not all. It is made by Gearbox Entertainment and is published by 2K. I cannot find general sales of just Borderlands 1, but to date, the series has sold 43 million units, which puts it up there as one of the highest selling series in history. Some other
Yeah, that's a lot. That's big numbers.
That's
They're
big
pushing
numbers.
some. That's
We'll,
big boy numbers right there.
we'll get
That's
to
what
it,
that is.
but half of that is Borderlands 2. Just put that number in perspective.
Yeah, let's be real here.
So another interesting tidbit as we kind of get into Borderlands to me is the game. It's one of the first times in modern entertainment history we see in video games where usually how the rule used to be is a game comes out, you do 80% of its sales, and you kind of do some back sales, and that's it. Borderlands is a very interesting case because they go at no point did this game do amazing sales. It just kept selling every single time it went on sale, which was unheard of back then in the industry.
Yeah, right. This was kind of well, I mean, I would say that this is a pretty groundbreaking game and a pretty unique game in a lot of ways. A lot of which I'm sure that we'll talk about. And I don't want to get ahead of myself if we're going to talk about this, but I think another one of my favorite aspects of the game is its totally unique art style.
So I was about to get,
Anything else there?
so I was about to get the art style. So I don't know if you remember. So this game was originally not supposed to look like this shell shaded thing. It was
Right.
supposed to be, and those are still the original trailers out there. It was this realistic, gritty shooter, and it's the story is like 9 months before launch. They just scrapped the entire art style from the game and made this cell shaded thing because it was relatively cheap to make and very quick. But it legitimately probably redefined this game from doing nothing to becoming what it was.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
figured,
it really kind of turned it into this whole. I mean, there's tons of these realistic, gritty kind of shooters out there. Stuff ranging all the way back from I would say the original Call of Duties I'd put on there to some a little bit more advanced stuff. But the cell shading really brought it gave it its own identity. As opposed to just being another open world first person shooter with a crap ton of loot.
yeah. So I figured to kind of start us out in this Borderlands talk. Then, what is kind of, and I'll answer it afterwards. Like, how did you first become aware of this game? Because I think my story is comically bad. So I'm curious, kind of how you became aware of Borderlands.
That's really tough. I know it was in high school because it was when I first got my PlayStation 3. I think I just stumbled across the trailer for this game, and I was like, "Yo, this looks like hilarious, and this looks super cool. I want it." And so I asked for it for Christmas, and then one Christmas it showed up under my Christmas tree, and yeah, I started playing it, and it was like, this is pretty cool. And then the rest was history.
Okay. I'm gonna correct your dates there for record. I am positive it was not high school. I think it was middle school.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking of the PlayStation 4. You're right.
Had to
It
because
had to be somewhere between 6th and 8th
it
grade.
had to be. Well, yes. Because dates. Because I'm trying to think just logistically. Because Borderlands 2 would came out when we were in beginning of high school. So I was thinking in my head of like where would this have fallen. But yeah, somewhere in that window. So
Hmm.
the way I became aware of this is not from you at all, ironically, even though we would end up playing it a ton together, is it would be Ben, our mutual friend, one who kept complaining about this game that his brother was horrible at called Borderlands. But because how what I know of Ben and Sebastian, I was picturing like a military shooter that took place on the border.
Hmm.
So imagine the surprise me when I get handed the controller when I'm at their house one day to play this game. Which, think about this for a second of what I pictured like a Call of Duty style military game, and I get handed this.
Yeah, right? And then you're like, oh, this feels kind of silly and kind of cartoony, but also kind of raw and really intense.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing. Like playing the game, you're like, what is going on? Also, looking back at the game, because I kind of played a little and you did too, like, God, I forgot how basic stuff like UI was and lack of a mini map was in this game.
Yeah. Now I got the game of the year on the PlayStation 4, like whatever it came out a month or two ago. And yeah, like just before that, I was playing it on the PlayStation 3 because I wanted to relive it, and then they announced they were gonna put it on next gen, and I was like, oh, I'll just hold off now. I'll just wait till it comes out. And playing it from the little bit I did in the PlayStation to now on the PlayStation 4, it is like, oh my god, I don't have to pick up every individual thing on the ground anymore. This is amazing.
Well, that was one thing. But again, it's little stuff like they didn't put a mini map in that goddamn game. Like,
Yeah, which is just also true, and it's really weird because now it's like there's this mini map in here, and I'm going through, X amount of years later after I first played it, and I'm discovering totally new like sections of the map that I'd never been to before.
for the record, to put this perspective, we both have the platinum in this game, which should tell you like we should know everything about this game.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pushing the second platinum for this game. I
That's
only need a few more for
but
the
the
PlayStation 4.
but the point is like I don't know how there are new areas. Like we'll get to it. I didn't process that the one bandit Baron Flit, who's like one of the final bandits you face. That's the Caustic Caverns from Borderlands 2.
Really?
Yeah, right. Because think about it. He has the doll like thing that you go up the elevator. It's the doll destroyer of the land, and then you go up an elevator to face him.
Oh,
Only
interesting.
one place I see that goddamn thing. I was like, what the hell is this?
Oh, that's actually kind of crazy. Yeah, I didn't even put that together until now.
Or even there's little stuff like characters we define in this series, which I think this is a good time to get to too, of like important. Like you don't meet people like God, who's our junkyard friend? I can't draw a name of right now.
Um, It'll come to me. I'm just blanking on it right now.
But the point is, like, you don't meet him until halfway through this game. We define him as a mainstay of the series. Or, like,
Hmm.
think of, like, TK Baha, who, like, only exists in this game, and, like, you forget how important he was. Or,
Yeah, I mean he's the if you don't count Claptrap, he's the second person you actually meet. And then I mean I was really pissed off in the first game because like they offed him so quickly.
mm-hmm.
But you go and you play the DLC and it's like, oh, he's a zombie now. That's kind of cool, I guess. And then in the second one, there's like this whole little mission kind of dedicated to him, and it's like, oh, that's really sick.
Or, like, little stuff like Lucky, who you forget's a big deal in this game, like when you meet Lucky and Scooter.
Yeah, yeah, and then you hear about him, forever in the second game. He's part of the Zafford clan, and there's one other guy too.
But there are these characters
Uh,
in here which I'm like, or like there's little stuff like,
Yeah, they're so.
The NPCs also, just from our point of view, have no life in them, which is like you see like Tannis, you're like, ooh.
Yeah, right. And then it's just like these really minor characters, and it always makes me wonder if they'd even intended to make a second game after the first one, and then if they just were like, oh, let's see where it goes, and then they did it, and then it's like, hey, we got all these real minor characters, so let's give them a little bit more backstory in the second game, you know?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good spot then too as we're going through this. Like, who is your favorite NPC probably from this first game?
Oh man, yeah. I always in every game have a really really soft spot in my heart for Zed.
Ned or Zed? Which one?
There's well, it has to be Zed because Ned is totally not Zed.
But again, he's not Zed. I was clarifying for that reason.
Yeah, he's totally not. Ned is totally not Zed, not
Mm-hmm.
even close. So it has to be it has to be Doctor Zed. Um, but yeah, no, I think he's my favorite. I just love his like really dark sense of humor, and I love that he always points out that he doesn't have a medical degree. He goes and he just does his doctor thing anyway. And it's always like, hey man, you know what? You don't got the tools and you don't got the knowledge, but you're doing it. And I think that rings true in my life a lot.
I always when I think of characters of Borderlands 1, you gotta think of our good old friend, the Doctor. You,
Doctor.
Doctor. Well, I'm sorry. Why I think Doctor. God, I was thinking you just said our good old friend, Marcus. Marcus is a goddamn G. The thing with Marcus.
I think you went out. I didn't hear the name.
Marcus. As in our military provides weapons equally to all.
Oh, Marcus. Oh, I got you. Yeah, Marcus.
Because think about it, he intros the god. He is the game. He is Borderlands. he hires you.
He's the storyteller.
But
and, this is something that I've always kind of wondered. Is everything really just a story told from the perspective of Marcus?
But we'll see. But no, because
like,
we'll learn. We'll learn in future games. It's not though, because there's future games where it's the perspective of like other people, of Athena, for example.
I suppose. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll buy that. I can ride that train.
See, we're riding this crazy train off of a cliff as we'll next episode.
Yes.
But speaking of characters then, so this is what's interesting to me is like we think of like the playable characters as we both like you identify with Roland a lot and I really like Mordecai. But it's just interesting of looking back, like they didn't really give them like good background stories or good ways to tell about the stories even like then, which is very interesting to me.
Right. Yeah, I think that the only reason I think we hold these strong kind of feelings towards our characters in future games from one is that when you play one, and I know you did the same thing that I did, is we stuck with our first characters, in my case Roland, and for you Mordecai, throughout the whole game, and we maxed out these characters and we turned them into these just absolute beasts, and we totally cheated and farmed Cromrex the Invincible for hours upon hours of our lives.
Because I'm convinced you couldn't beat Cromrex otherwise. I'm gonna still stick with that one.
It's fine. We can cross that bridge in a later date. And we can talk about how with Axton I can solo Terramorphous, no troubles whatsoever. But for another episode. But then it comes the second game. We actually get the backgrounds of these characters. We get to hear them speak. We get to see them in a role that's a little bit more advanced than just, oh, I'm just gonna run around and fight a vault.
If you told me in Borderlands 1 that Roland led the gang, you'd be like, Roland feels like the dumb. Like it's funny, like no one in this group feels smart or feels like they could lead a thing. They truly all feel like the bandits you pulled off to the side. Be like, you want to make money?
Right. Yeah, and I think
like my favorite
in that
is
sense that's why Borderlands 1 was so strong as like a single player game, was because none of those characters that you chose from felt like they were any better than the other characters.
Which is not true for the record. I'm still sticking with playing on anyone but Roland is playing on hard mode in this game.
I would agree with that to an extent. I honestly like I'm playing Brick right now in PS4, and he is so difficult because his special ability is just to punch people. And it's like there's times when it's super crazy, like when you're getting like a group of people and you're surrounded, where just punching works.
Okay, but like
But
the
like when you're fighting
destroyer.
like bosses and stuff, I'm like, dude, I'm getting my ass kicked.
For the record, that was like
Wait,
Mordecai.
why don't I have a turret to throw now?
That's like Mordecai. You understand? Mordecai's whole shit is I throw the bird. But the issue with throwing the bird is he works great as crowd control, but he doesn't work great when there's one strong enemy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Another interesting thing, which I always, because I think of it too, is, which I always forget in this game too, what's another system-wide interesting as in Borderlands 1 that I think is very intriguing is the idea of how we were able to put like a type of element on our special,
Mm-hmm.
which I completely forget is not a thing. Like, because you go, yeah. Because I remember, because I made my bird corrosive, and it was this interesting thing of like, that they move in future games of you can put an element on your guy.
Right. Yeah. No, I think at least I remember in 2, the only thing that I could do element wise with my turret for Axton was like you had an option to do slag, like shoot slag bullets, and that was the only element that you could put related to it.
Mm-hmm. It was that. Also, it's interesting because Borderlands 1, they RPGify in a very interesting way because we now have it where they actually had certain things where they wanted, like, Mordecai to use a sniper. They wanted Roland to use assault rifles, and they gave us bonuses tied to certain weapons, which they would just completely drop in future games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think of you know, in my most recent playthrough in Borderlands 2, I used Salvador, who's not the fun, by the way. He's kind of cool, but it kind of sucks at some points. Where, yeah, you don't really have the encouragement to use any specific gun. It's like, hey, just find a combo that works for you. But with his special, you pretty much can't use sniper rifles.
You can.
Just because it just doesn't work very well. You need something automatic or something, at least something that does high, like
Boom, boom.
fires quickly. And so it's like sniper rifles are out of the question, and then like revolver pistols are just kind of meh. And so it's like you pretty much to make real good use of, especially you need either an assault rifle or a submachine gun or an automatic shotgun.
But jumping back to Borderlands, another Borderlands 1 character second 2 is another one that I think we both need to talk about is Lilith is useless in Borderlands 1.
Oh my god, 100%.
Like, I don't fully understand who thought her power was a good idea and who thought her power worked. Because it was, phase walking was literally pointless.
It's the only like decent thing about it is when you're fighting a boss or an enemy that doesn't have like area of effect damage, and so it's like, oh, I need to just heal up real quick, and so you just go into your phase walk and you just kind of get away from the combat for a second and heal up. Like that's the only thing it's really good for.
But it's the only one that it could do damage, but like it never did damage that like mattered, which was the problem.
It was like, oh, I'm just gonna slap this guy and maybe element like, you know, a burst of flames. But yeah, it was never anything where it'd be like, I'm gonna throw this and I'm gonna change the battle with this.
Another interesting thing about this, what I think is funny too, is so like Borderlands, we think of the guns, but Borderlands 1 is interesting to me because we don't think of gun manufacturers in the same way we do in future games because like they didn't define them as differently. They like we have stuff that don't matter. Like you have Atlas guns, which are anything. Or do you remember like the weird iridium guns you'd get and you'd be like, what the hell are these things? But you always want to use them.
But they're I mean, they had high damage, but they sucked.
They just, because the recharge on them was literally these atrocious like one blast. You'd be like, what? And the best part is you keep asking like, what is this gun? No one would answer the question.
You never really got an explanation as to what these are, and then by 2 they were gone.
And I don't think, so basically we now understand they're vault guns, but we still don't fully understand what those suckers were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love it if they revisited that at some point. Not really the gun, just
explaining it.
What's the dealio here?
Which jumping kind of in the game in that way for me is, I think of Borderlands in 3 pieces in my head always. It's the first, when you start the game, when you meet the Atlas soldiers, I think is the first like tipping point in Old Haven in that game. Mm-hmm. And I think then the obvious tipping point after that is when you start dealing with those weird medium guys.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think I kind of like, we kind of jumped in that opening segment. We met the guys. The Old Haven part to me is fascinating because it truly feels like to me you're facing a completely different game. Because like in my head, this game goes from this fun, goofy shoot to like this serious, hard game that becomes actually hard for like a really weird way.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Your first part, you're fighting, wildlife, and you're fighting bandits, and it's psychos and it's midgets, and you're like, oh, this is just these goofy, crazy, over the top characters. And then once you start fighting like a real military force, then you're like, oh, like this game can be serious.
Like to me, it's like as we'll get to in the next episode, like when Borderlands 2, when you first meet Handsome Jack's robots, like it's the same line I think in the sand of like, oh, this game's easy, and like, holy shit, no, it's not.
Yeah, yeah. No, I also equate that to fighting stalkers too, but I have a rant planned for stalkers when we talk about two, so we'll save that for later.
And then obviously the next simple we said is like the ingredient stuff, where like to me it's this very interesting thing of like, because we're like, what are these nobodies from Kingdom Hearts doing in this game, and B, what do they do?
Yeah. Now I remember the first time I played like that section of the game, that little ending bit where these guardians are everywhere, and I'm just thinking, it's like, what is happening? Who are these people? Why? Like, somebody give me some type of explanation right now, because I don't know what the hell is happening.
So I think that's a good segment then. So I think we could both agree then, and I'm gonna curious if you don't agree with this line is. This is one of the worst final boss fights I've ever faced in a video game in my life.
I wouldn't say it's one of the worst, but I would definitely say that it's pretty lackluster.
Cause it's so you face the Destroyer, who's this giant, like crank-like brain from Ninja Turtles, but with extra purple claws.
Yeah.
You just have to do a ton of damage.
It gives you almost like no, it's so underwhelming of a fight.
And the best part is, and they even talk about it too. They go, because they just wanted to fuck with you. Is when you beat them, there is no vault, so there are no guns.
Yeah, it's like you get like a couple of crates, and it's like,
But like, there's no actual
man,
vault with
sorry.
guns.
And yeah, so it's like this whole build up for the game is just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's the game. And this is where
Yeah.
I think it becomes interesting. Because I say this for every Borderlands game. The first playthrough with the character of the game is fun, but then you realize you could go to that second playthrough, and shit gets crazy.
Yeah, and the second playthrough is always just absolutely nuts, and it is. I always think that it's significantly harder.
But
than the
but
first
it's interesting
playthrough.
because you have more powers, so I think it's more fun. And then when you first realize the first time you play through this game that they changed the name of the characters,
Yeah, yeah.
but you're like, wait, did that say like motherfucker? No, like psycho. You're like, what?
And you're like, oh, that's different. That like Psycho is now like a maniac, and like
And he's looks a lot harder.
that badass is like twice as big as he used to be.
And it's just an interesting idea, I think, especially in the era of like, think like this is the era of like Call of Duty campaigns where you play them once and you're done, or like RPGs where it's this thing again. We don't do this new game plus in the same way, and if you do it, it's usually the same game. Where they went, no, it's new game plus. So like here's actual new shit, and like you're not gonna max your level in the first playthrough. Like they made it so you had to play it again, which I think is intriguing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that whole dynamic of having enemies with different names and having better loot, more opportunities, and kind of maybe not so much in the first one, but definitely in the later games, changing the way the story is told to portray that yeah, you already did this once.
I completely forgot that
Right,
they
here's
did
your-
that in like the pre-sequel. You're right.
Yeah, everybody's like, yo, tell the story again, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll tell the story again. And then so instead of getting the story from the narrator, you're getting it from the characters interjecting and being like, oh, whoa, wait, hold on, let's tell that part again, something like that.
But yeah, so that's kind of like the base game, but we still have some DLC to go over. So I have the list here of there's 4 pieces of DLC for Borderlands 1. I think there are 2 or 3 great pieces of DLC and one that needs to get burned in a fucking like fire pit of death. Would you want to start that one?
I'm really curious to see which one you say needs to get burned in the pit of death.
So the second DLC released is called Mad Moxie's Motherfucking Underdome, which is funny because this is where we meet Moxie.
Yeah, which is also, if we could just harp on this for a second, Moxie is definitely one of the main characters in the
series,
in, like the pre-sequel, and like every other DLC from that point on. But we literally meet her in a DLC,
which
that is
so this DLC is literally just like go in a death circle and survive rounds, which is funny because this is where this mechanic's introduced, which in 2 we'll get to is it's a big deal and a thing, where in this game they just do it in a DLC, which would be fine if they didn't always scale with your level. And you didn't, and the last one wasn't literally a 5-hour thing that you have to do in one playthrough.
Yeah, no, I always think of like in Borderlands 1, there's a couple instances where you play like these like Circle of Death or whatever, but they're always super short. They get progressively harder, and they don't scale to your level.
Because the whole point of an RPG is.
Right, like you could ignore the one that's in Firestone, come back when you're level 25 and smoke all the level 12s that are in there. No big deal. But it's like this one, you're going to come through and play through 1 at level 68, and you're going to play dudes who are level 68, 69, 70.
Right. I was going to say, don't forget the part where they scale up like that. Yeah. When you get to like the final waves, you're like, I can't do another 15 waves of this mission.
Yeah. And I mean, now I think on the PlayStation 4 it'd be a little bit different because you can
suspend
throw PlayStation in rest mode.
But we can do
and then
PS3
like, I can pick this up later. We when you're doing that grind on the PlayStation 3, you're there for hours.
And we cheated the system where one of us would have a high level character, the other would have a low level character. It would still take hours just because the volume of people that you'd have to kill.
Yeah, I mean it's something crazy like it's like 5 rounds of 5, right?
Yeah, but how bad could that be? But the issue is the rounds aren't all the same length. They actually get longer and longer lengths.
Oh, so yeah, your first one maybe you can get done in like 5 minutes, but then your second one's gonna take you 6 minutes, then 7 minutes, then 10 minutes, then and it's just gonna keep on piling on, and then you're halfway through, and you're like, oh my god, it's been an hour and 15 minutes.
Which I need to plug in. This is at least something they fix in future games. Something like Borderlands 2, they took the same idea, but they divided them into shorter chunks that I could save in between.
Yeah, honestly, that was a really great move because that was just such an
and for the record, we're not just venting because this is DLC. This is the entire DLC, by the way. We're not being like this is that piece DLC. No, that's the entire DLC.
No, the DLC is 10 hours, and it is 10 hours of you doing nothing but trying to fight in this damn circle.
God. Okay, so the next piece of DLC I thought we'd talk about, which is this is the one I questionably go from good to great, is Zombie Island of Dr. Ned.
Yes.
So I think it's great from a storytelling end, it's one of the highest points in the original Borderlands. I just don't know if I think from an actual holding up and a map design and what you do point of view is where I think I might fall flat a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I'm like you said, I'm very torn on whether this is a good DLC or if it's a great DLC. Number one, I love it. I love the characters in it. I love Dr. Ned. I think that's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I'm a big horror person, so the whole, spooky island theme really just makes me happy. And I love zombies, and I think that shooting zombies it's one of the more fun things you can do in the game. But there's something about it that just makes it feel kind of weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this interesting thing of. It feels like they just reskinned a lot of the enemies, and it almost because this was their first piece of DLC, and it almost felt like they're like it. So the only thing I think I actually remember visibly as a scene from it is the whole like you fighting in the elevator sequence, and you have to like start this elevator going up. Like that's other than the rest of the DLC. I feel like to me, I don't have this like vivid memories tied to it in the same way the other even like Mod Moxie's. It's anger, but I have like an emotion and a memory tied to the DLC.
Right. Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's, you know, you're fighting these like literally just swarms of the undead, and the whole time, Dr. Ned is just like, hold on, you know, I'm an old man, I gotta hand crank this thing, and then every time you use the elevator after that, it's automatic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like, but yeah, I, I think I wish it could have been done better. I wish it could have been a little bit longer, and I wish that they could have, like, to me, it feels like this was them testing the waters. Like, how's the DLC gonna work?
Especially we're in this era of like 2009 where we don't have to want to forget is like DLC is this new-ish thing. Like the infamous first piece of DLC is Oblivion and Horse Armor in like 2006 on a console, but like story DLC is this thing on consoles. You're like, you're selling what? Like this is a very new, like this is the era of like Call of Duty map packs started in 2009 to put you in perspective of like the era we're in of people are questioning does DLC work.
Right. Yeah. And so I think, yeah, this very much was it was them just like kind of testing the waters, seeing where it's gonna go, seeing how people are gonna react to it, and I think that's why it maybe wasn't as developed and polished as some of the later DLC.
So now I think it's time for us to jump to I think we'll both agree a more polished DLC that I think we both remember being a very enjoyable time. Are you ready to talk about Le Revolution?
Absolutely, 100%. Probably top 3 favorite DLC in any video game I've ever played.
So the visual is Claptrap's New Robot Revolution, which, when you're a kid, does not realize that they're making fun of Venezuela the entire time, for the record.
And
it's literally Chavez. It's literally is what it was.
And I mean everything in it. I mean, you can go through it, and it playing it now as an adult and as somebody who's, you know, like gone to college and studied history and knows all these, you know, really important figures. He's making fun of you know, the communist revolution, the Bolshevik revolution, the Cuban revolution, like all these really major things are all just kind of slammed into one package, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Like I like how it ends with absurdity. Like Claptrap at the end was like, "Yeah, I took all these guns from the people. You want to like go down there and just take the guns? They don't need them anymore." Like that's how the DLC ends.
Yeah, and just I love that in later games too. Like this DLC is referenced as like, I think mostly in the pre-sequel when you play as Claptrap.
Because the Claptrap in the pre-sequel is this Claptrap. I thought like this is the canon Claptrap, is my understanding. Like this is the Claptrap that you deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And so like you'll be playing through the pre-sequel, and like occasionally you'll get like a little dialogue thing of him talking about the revolution, and immediately he'll like his system will just like reboot, and it'll like have an error message pop up.
Because at the end you like wipe them.
And it's just like it's so great. I love it.
Like that's great. There's little like when you deal with different Claptraps in it.
Yeah, and it's just there's all these little. Okay, but before we're talking about all the good, I want to talk about one of the bad parts of that DLC.
You only get to shoot Claptrap only so many times. I understand.
It's the trophies in that DLC.
So I don't know the trophies. That DLC is good because Red Boxes I remember are horrible. What is it that's so atrocious about these trophies?
Now, to somebody who isn't like a trophy hunter, like goes platinums like us, it's not a big deal. But it's like you have to collect these ridiculous amounts of these drops. These just random drops.
Now I remember.
And it's like it's not money, it's not guns, it's like oil cans and pizza and underwear, and it's like
I forgot how. And
you know, this is when
we did
small.
And I want to point this out too. This is our first platinum, so we didn't know that you didn't have to get the DLC. We thought you did, so we treated it in our collection of trophies in the middle of it.
Yep, exactly. So. I don't know how many hours.
I remember. I remember
on YouTube and I looked up a way to just like.
I literally
there's a way that you can
had a note on my phone of like all of the things and everything because I didn't know the amount I had. So every time I'd get it, I would just minus the number on my phone, so I had at least an idea of how much more work I had to do.
I'd always, after a point, I'd just start counting them, and I'd be like, okay, I got 6 of these for sure, and maybe, and I need 20, so like maybe I got like 10 right now. Who knows?
Who knows? And then you'd be like, and then you wouldn't. You'd be
But
like,
it was
fuck,
just
I
like,
need to wait it.
it's so ridiculous, and I spent so many hours that.
It was literally like I just do it. Okay, I got 2 more today. Okay, gotta go to school. Like 2 more today, good. And you'd literally be spending this for
Seriously,
hours.
that's just how it is.
You would just be like circling these guys forever, and you'd be like, okay, they dropped the thing I already have the trophy for. Great, thank you guys. Glad we understand each other.
Oh yeah, you'll kill like a whole group of them, and then you'll go and it's like, well, I got 5 3D glasses. I already have that.
That's
trophy.
what it was.
Like,
Do you remember what it
come
was?
on.
It was there was the boss we could glitch that he would spawn little explosive claptraps. We could hide in the corner. It was the final boss.
Yeah,
You-
the maniac.
Right, you'd hide in the corner. He'd spawn explosive guys. A bunch of them would die. Then you'd kill the maniac. Then you'd check how many you have.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that there's like a point where I would like just leave my PlayStation for like 45 minutes an hour, and just go and do something.
I
else,
did
and then come
overnight
back,
once.
just
I
pick
remember.
up
I remember.
everything and then hide again.
I literally did overnight, and when you get to the next day, it's literally like that thing's on fire, basically smoking. Because there's so many things on the screen.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's not running very well, and you just like
Gotta kill
hold
everyone.
square to pick up a group of things, and it just like freak out.
But yeah, I think this is a great piece of DLC. So I purposely saved this last piece of DLC for last because I think it's a very interesting one and it's their biggest DLC. I think one of the biggest pieces they ever did, and this is the biggest one for one, is the Secret Army of Nox. And the reason I think this is a very important DLC is this is when they first understood the idea of having a DLC really take place after a story. It really is a lead up into 2 in a lot of systems they're testing in this game. And they finally understood the payoff of a vault, and they understood it to the point was they let you do it like 3 or 4 frickin' times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every time you went and raided General Knox's armory, and you only had that little bit of time if you didn't do the glitch.
We all did the glitch.
To run around and pick up everything.
The glitch was the best.
That was fun.
The glitch was you just hop on the one entry thing and eventually you'd fall down.
Yeah. And then you could just open up everything, and then bingo grango, reload the game. You just raided the armory.
But yeah, so this basic idea of this was so you'd face the final boss, and then they'd be like, you could go in this giant thing before the explosion happens, which is about 2 minutes. What's funny about that is in multiplayer, you start panicking because you basically just make sure you wanted all the high graded guns and you run out of there. In single player, the game paused when you were in your menu system, so you could do stuff like grab a bunch of guns, organize them quick, go drop, okay, and you can actually kind of cheat the system without actually cheating it to have actually like 10 minutes in that vault.
Right, yeah, and actually get to review what you picked up, as opposed to every time that you and I did it, when it would literally be like, okay, I'm getting the right side, you get the left side.
And
okay,
we just
cool.
all walk out there with an orange and be like, I hope this is good, because we couldn't look.
And it's just like, if you see a one box you opened and it has like green and white, so you're just like, I'm just gonna ignore it. And you see another one with purple, and you're like, all right, grabbing it, we'll check it later,
And you'd have this weird subconscious thing of like, these ones in the hard areas must be better, right? So let's just waste our time to go here, when they really weren't.
Yeah. It's like, oh, like these boxes I feel like are rarer looking, so like let's just take these ones.
But it's also sad though, because General Knox is like the last time we really got to see Atlas. It's a sad time.
I think we need to put a pause on that one.
Well, okay. That's true.
Because I think that a later episode, we'll get to discuss Atlas in a little bit more detail, and I think with the coming of Borderlands 3, there might be some Atlas things we should talk about.
That's true, but it's still this thing of like the way it was, and also to me, I think it's interesting because like this is also I think the one flaw in their system here that they talk about, and it's an actual technical issue that they fix in later games is. So most of the other DLCs had like 3 or 4 sections, right? The Secret Army of Nox literally had like 15 new maps they gave you. But the way they built the DLC is you can only fast travel into the hub area.
Which was super annoying.
Like, you didn't realize how bad it was until you got in this one. But it was fun because, like, but it's still interesting. This one was like, here's the new guns, here's a new car type, here's the thing. But you're like, but you gotta walk 20 minutes to get to your mission.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I remember even now playing it. When the Game of the Year edition came out for the for next gen is like, I'm I'm spending 10 minutes driving to a mission location now,
Is that a bad thing?
and it's just like that's annoying. I don't like that. Just give me a fast travel. Come on.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very. I just find it a very interesting piece of DLC, and it's very because you could totally tell. Like it's funny because they made Claptrap actually is the DLC they made before too, but this feels a lot more like the DLC they made before too. Just the idea of how they're testing kind of like how new like cars would work or how these new things would work, and it feels kind of like a better closing statement on like Borderlands as a game.
Right, right, and I think saying that it's kind of a lead up into two is a pretty accurate statement because it does seem like they're like, okay, the next time we're gonna come back and it's gonna be bigger and it's gonna be better.
And correct me
And
if
I
I'm
think
wrong.
that
This is
DLC
where
shows
like
the
Athena
bigger
was the
better.
villain in this one, right? I'm not crazy. Like
What was that?
this is Athena. Like as in pre
It
sequels
was the villain or the narrator?
was the villain because that was pre sequels Athena is the villain of General Knox.
Uh, I have a really hard time saying that Athena is a villain.
But
I
she
think
is.
that's
You shoot her.
I think there's. I have a. I could probably write a whole thesis about Athena being a villain
Oh
or
my
not
God.
being a villain
So we're
in like the entire Borderlands series.
so let me get this straight. So Athena to you, if you do the D&D chart, is the like chaotic neutral. Is that what you're gonna put her?
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, she's done some bad things and she's kind of worked for both sides of the gambit, but
Who's
at least in General Knox, I mean, she's trying to get revenge on Atlas because Atlas did her dirty basically.
okay? So Atlas did her dirty, but she's still the one who like at points kind of tries to stop you just because the nature of like you're in her way.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's like kind of why I said like I don't necessarily know if she's a villain. I think she's more of like a I think chaotic neutral is a good word for it. She's an opportunist, and she's got good and she's got bad. But I think specifically talking about the end of General Knox, I think that she did more good because it stopped Atlas from becoming like basically a Hyperion in Borderlands 2.
But like, see, you say that, but I think that's bad because imagine if we got them as the Hyperion in Borderlands 2, then they at least would fight each other. Because the whole shtick, as we'll get to, is the end of this game is with the whole Atlas stuff is you see the Hyperion satellite and you go, why is there a satellite? This is Hyperion.
Yeah, and that's true too. And it's one of those things like hindsight's 2020, and yeah, I don't want to get too much into future episodes and future games talking about Athena. So I think we'll put a pin in this one and we'll say we'll be back to Athena not being the villain. But you're right. Yeah, I think that the end of Borderlands 1 is super suspicious, and it's like
Because in the moment, I didn't even think anything of it. I'm like, okay, they showed that. Like, I didn't even process what that meant.
yeah. I mean, and I think maybe at that point it's just because the only real
They're like,
the only real gun
we're like,
manufacturer you knew was Atlas.
beyond them, like, I like legitimately in Borderlands
NCC.
1, you could put all the guns in front of me. I could not have told you. I just knew I liked Jacob's guns because how they fired, but I couldn't tell you what they look like or anything else beyond any other gun. Like, I'd be like, they're all guns, some shoot better than others. Let me shoot it.
Yeah, you didn't really take into consideration, like, oh, who are the manufacturers of each one, and then yeah, like you said, there really wasn't any major signifying differences.
I think they talked
between
about
two.
the biggest one was Jacob's was a like were all semi-auto and they all had like more Western, but like that's really it.
Yeah, and I think Maliwan was always had like really good elementals.
Right.
Like, those were the only two distinctions I made.
But at the same time, we didn't. I don't know. It's this interesting thing of like elementals mattered, but they didn't matter the same way as they would in future games because the elemental was like there was no robot, so like corrosive was. I remember because it was explosive. They said was all round. Shock was for shields. It was fire was good on flesh, and it was corrosive. They went it does something, and you're like, what does that mean? And corrosive literally just did good against spiders.
Yeah, Yeah, there was really no. I like you said, like I think other than like fire and corrosive, there was or fire and shock, there wasn't.
Because explosive, they just
You know,
said it just
explosive was explosive.
they literally
Blew
defined
shit up.
explosive as
Cool.
normal is what they defined it. Kind of like if you look at the threshold of like it did extra damage, but it didn't do like excess damage on top of that if you
Right.
combine it. Where like electric and fire, you could play them correctly to do extra damage. Explosive was the
Yeah.
default in between when you're in doubt.
Yeah. So it was always just kind of like yeah, you never really gave much of a thought to the elementals. It was like, oh, I found this, cool fire shotgun. Sick. It didn't it wasn't like, oh, I need a corrosive gun for, when I'm fighting Hyperion, or I need a shotgun because I'm going to be fighting this boss that has a big shield, stuff like that. That would didn't have that in consideration.
Mm-hmm. But that actually leads me on another as we get to the closing end of the discussion of like interesting thoughts of like other like flaws in Borderlands One that I think fixed the future games was like little stuff of like like in a lot of missions they're like shoot this thing with a fire weapon or whatever. Future games
Mm-hmm.
they realized let's give them a weapon. This game they're like good luck.
Yeah. Oh man, actually, it's really funny you say that. There's a mission right now in Borderlands 1. I was playing it the other day just to, refresh on this. And I think I needed a shock weapon for the mission. And I didn't have one and I can't find one, and so I've just been ignoring the mission until I find a shock
Right,
weapon.
right.
And it's like, yeah, that's annoying.
Which is funny because I almost could almost see it in some designers' head. They're like, they could find one. We made it this way, but like it's still this thing of like in practice, you're like, just give me the weapon. I don't care why I have the weapon. Just give me one.
Yeah. Or it's the other thing too. It's like, oh, maybe in their head, it's like, oh, there's a shotgun, there's a shock weapon that's going to be dropped, right here, or you're going to get it as a reward for this first part of the mission. But it's like, hey, you're not paying attention to it. Maybe I sold it in a vending machine and I don't remember which vending machine.
Right, like there's little stuff like that, or like maybe you just dropped it. Because I'm like, I don't need this shit.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's just so frustrating. Where yeah, it was always, in later games, you'd always have the option of like, oh, here's a mission specific weapon, and you just use it for that one moment, and that's it.
Yeah. So as we get to the end of this, Stan, any other closing thoughts you have on Borderlands One as a game?
I think it's a fantastic game. I think that it was the well, obviously it was the birth of one of the greatest video game series I have ever played. I think it's a totally unique game from anything during its time. And I would to this day rate it as probably one of my top 10 favorite video games of all time.
Ooh, see, this is an interesting thing when you say something like that, because to me, I can almost tell you, from my end, favorite in the sense of, like, emotionally tied to it, but I don't know if it's truly, like, it's not one of the best games I've ever played. And I think in future in the series, future games in the series, I might put in one of the best. I don't think I'll put Borderlands 1 in that category, because it's interesting, because art-wise, it holds up great. But I think the rest of it, as we talked about, like, has these kind of flaws, or this kind of, like, you could just kind of see its age on. Like, I could point at this game blindly and go, yeah, I know about what era this game is from right now. Just because the way, like, certain things were built, and that was just the way things were built at the time.
Right. Yeah, and I think analyzing it from a time perspective, yeah, it's obviously it's not going to hold up in comparison to some games that come out now, and games that have come out within the last 4 or 5 years. But I think when you're looking at least the PlayStation 3 generation, I would put it as one of the top games on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was our discussion of Borderlands One. As we end this here, we do have some rankings I would like to do as we'll do this with the rest of the games. But right now we have one game, so we gotta define it. So, ranking of the actual games to me, I'll put Borderlands as the first on the list because right now it is the best game in the series based on what we've discussed about.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is the part I didn't write down yet because I didn't want to tell you till I got to it. For each of the games, I want to have one playable character that we define as the character that we wish can die, and then at the end we're gonna see which character do we hate the most of the playable characters.
Of the playable characters.
Of
Okay.
the playable, so
All
like,
right.
so I think we could both agree that I think we'll say death of the playables is what we're gonna call this segment, and I think you'll agree with me, is it should be Lilith.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that there. Um,
Because
Obviously, I'm not going to say Roland. I think Roland's amazing.
I think
I would
Roland
even agree that I think Mordecai is
I think
probably
here's why.
the second best.
They're
character
the
in
most
game.
useful characters. Roland and Mordecai are the most safe in this list because they're the most useful.
Yeah.
Brick
And
is annoying, but I find use for him. Lilith, as we
I
discussed,
think Brick is
is pointless.
Brick is really close to Lilith as being worthless.
Which is funny, because when they throw Salvador in the mix and just give Brick guns, I think it fixes all the Brick problems.
Exactly, because it's like, man, when I'm playing as Brick, I don't want to run into every situation and just beat the hell out of people.
Sometimes I want to shoot
people. And then once
people.
it wears off, I'm screwed again,
But you say this, but Lilith's sole power is I heal myself, and I ran.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's not great. And I think that Maya in the next game kind of fixes those a bit. But
We'll
yeah,
get
I
to
would
it,
definitely say
because the
that
next game we have, I don't think you remember this. We have 6 playable characters to deal with next game, and we have 5 the game after that. So don't get your high hopes up.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm gonna surprise you with my top list in Borderlands 2. But
oh no. But yeah.
I would agree that Lilith is definitely the most useless character of that game.
So remember, currently on our list of best Borderlands game, we have Borderlands 1, and our current ranking for Death of the Playables is Lilith. So, how this is going to work is every couple weeks, me and Dan are going to join you guys once again, talk about the next game in the series. I should have looked this up beforehand, but Borderlands 3.
September 19th.
September 13th, 2019.
Damn, I was close.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because 19th I think is like a Saturday or something stupid. This was like, I don't think you're right. But yeah, September 13th, 2019. So right now we're recording this on June 25th. It'll probably be up like June 26th, 27th. We'll see how lazy I get. So then every, I think, 2 weeks or so, we'll peek in with the next episode of the series to talk about the games leading up to it. And then we'll do a final huzzah episode to talk about Borderlands 3 when it comes up. So stay tuned on the SWW feed for these amazing Borderlands episodes. Remember, you can subscribe on iTunes or podcast services around the globe. Leave us a nice rating and review. You could check us out at the swwshow.com or email us at podcasts@theswwshow. You could find Dan on Twitter at a God on the Run.
That is correct.
So yeah, it's a God on the Run. I assume you could spell second grade words, people. I'm just gonna make that assumption. They're all small words. You could figure it out.
No caps, no spaces.
It's Twitter.
And
it doesn't matter.
If you like this episode, send Mikey a message or an email with 5 reasons as to why I might be better than AJ.
Might be better than again. It's a might be. Oh, Dan, I did promise as we close this. I was going to tell AJ this. So I don't know if you know this. I officially have unionized, so because AJ overworks us here at the SWW show. We are local union 69. So I was wondering if you'd like to join the unionization with me, so it's official. So we have 2 employees under this unionization.
I don't mess with unions.
Oh fuck! God damn it! This is the problem with the union laws in this country. If there's 1 of me, I have 0 recourse. If there's 2 of me, I at least legally can form a union. Damn it!
I don't mess with unions, man. Sorry about that. Too many conflicts in the past.
Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Mikey_Maroney. And remember, we'll check you guys out next time. Stay tuned in the next week or so for a normal episode of the SWW show. Otherwise, we'll be back to journey our way back to Pandora. Say bye, everyone. This podcast was a product of the SWW show. You can find more at the swwshow.com or facebook.com/the SWW store or twitter.com/SWW. You can find out more about Mike at Mikey_Maroney on Twitter and more about AJ at Losivor on Twitter. Remember, new episodes come out twice a month, one focusing on the new entertainment news and one focusing on movie club, so new and an old movie. You can find out more again at the swwshow.com, and you can find the show on podcast services around the the globe.